In this part of the lecture, we're going to talk about three other types of markets. And we'll start with another extreme, which we call a monopoly. A monopoly is a situation where in the market there's only one firm. The main cause of monopolies is barriers to entry. It's very difficult for the other firms to enter that market. So even though right now with the help of the government or maybe some other competitive forces arise, we're trying to break the monopolies, we're trying to ease up these barriers to entry. They still exist. Not that many, because as with perfectly competitive markets, it's pretty difficult to find actual examples of monopolies, but they do exist, and the main reason for them is the barriers to entry. So there are three sources of barriers to entry. First one is where the single firm owns a key resource. For example, De Beers owns most of the world's diamond mines. As a result, there are monopolies. The government can give a single firm the exclusive right to produce a product through a patent or copyright law. For example, a C.K. Lewis or whoever wrote the Harry Potter, she has a monopolistic right on that book. I should have looked up her name, but she has, you know who I'm talking about. She has a monopolistic right, and that's because of the copyright law. Nobody else is allowed to write anything about Harry Potter except for her. There's also a case with natural monopoly, a situation where a single firm can produce entire market quantity at the lower cost that several firms could produce. For example, it's a cable TV. So this situation we call a natural monopoly. So without any kind of a protection from the government, it's just simply cheaper for a single firm to produce entire quantity than if there was a competitive market. Why is cable TV an example of that? Well, imagine a firm that started producing cable service, right? So they have a cord that goes from their company to a first house on the street. So if, let's say that the second house on the street wants to have that cable, they don't have to lie that cable all the way from their company to that second house. They can just move that cable from one house to another house. Well, what if there was another competitor? Well, now they have to build their company and have the whole network starting from scratch, which adds to a lot of cost. They also have to, like when there's two little companies instead of one, each one of them has to have an accountant. Each one of them has to have a manager. Each one of them has to rent a building, provide a parking space, etc., etc., etc. If they were one company, they can avoid a lot of cost, which makes them able to produce goods at the lower cost. Thus, as a result, we say that monopolies can produce sometimes goods at the lower cost, thus they're able to charge lower price than if the competition was present. Those are mostly exceptions, but of course they exist. So what are the general characteristics of a monopoly? Monopolist is going to be a price maker. Can the monopolist charge as much as he wants? Well, after all, he is the only one firm in the market. But why wouldn't he charge $1,000 for 1 kilobyte of energy? Well, as monopolist increases the price, the quantity demanded decreases. And monopolist knows about that. So even if you're the only one company in the market, after you increase the price, after you raise the price and make it really, really high, people will simply stop buying that product. So monopolist needs to find a balance between quantity produced and the price that he's charging. So how is he going to determine how much to produce and which price to charge? Well, he is going to be a profit maximizer. And as we said, that happens when marginal benefits equal to marginal cost. So that's what monopolist is going to do. He's going to produce that quantity at which marginal benefit equals to marginal cost and charge the price that will guarantee that quantity to be sold. Meaning, first monopolist will decide how much he wants to sell, and only after that he's going to decide which price he needs to charge in order not to have anything to be left behind. He also doesn't want to charge lower price that there's too many people going to be in line for that product. So he's going to find a price which will guarantee that exact quantity to be sold. Compared to the other markets, monopoly is going to produce the least and charge the most, meaning that monopolist is always going to charge highest price compared to any other markets and produce the smaller amount of products. Monopolistic competition is the third type of the market we're going to discuss. Monopolistic competition, as you can judge from the name, combines the characteristics of both monopoly and perfect competition. So monopolistically competitive firms are going to be price makers. In this sense, they're similar to monopolists. Why are they similar to monopolists? Well, remember that monopolistic competition, in that market, we produce somewhat differentiated products, meaning that, well, let's say that I'm producing toothpaste. I'm going to add mint flavor to that toothpaste. And that makes that product somewhat unique. So I'm actually going to act as a monopolist. Even though there are similar types of toothpaste, I act like I'm a monopolist because I only produce that wonderful toothpaste with that delicious mint flavor. So they're going to be price makers. And they're going to act very similar to the monopoly since the products are differentiated. So they're going to charge higher price than a perfect competition, and they're going to produce lower quantity than a perfectly competitive market. Yet that price is going to be lower than monopoly and higher than a quantity higher than monopoly. So think about this. Why do consumers like these markets? Why do we as a society actually like these markets? Because most markets you look at are going to be monopolistically competitive markets. Well, the thing is, they produce differentiated products. We as consumers will love varieties. We don't want all to dress up in the same clothes. We don't want to eat the same food. We don't want to go to the same restaurants every single time. We like monopolistic competition because even though they charge slightly higher price than the perfectly competitive markets, they provide us with variety. Examples of monopolistically competitive markets are going to be delivery pizza, chain restaurants, books, apartments, things like that, clothing. All of those are examples of monopolistic competition. Oligopoly is the fourth type of the market we're going to discuss. Oligopoly is the market that's characterized in the market where there's only few firms, not too many, not one, but few firms. So examples of oligopoly is video games, credit cards, soft drinks. All of those are examples of oligopoly. Even though we might think that soft drinks like Pepsi and Coke, Mountain Dew, Sprite, all those things are kind of look like monopolistic competition, but they're really owned by a few large firms, which makes them oligopoly. Oligopoly is going to set the price based on the pricing strategies of their competition. So when Pepsi decides how much to charge for Pepsi products, they're going to think how much Coke is going to charge for that product. So they're going to be making strategic decisions based on the strategy of the other companies. They're going to decide on their price. So compared to the other markets, oligopoly quantity is going to be greater than monopoly, but smaller than competitive market. An oligopoly price is going to be greater than competitive market, but less than monopoly price. We're going to discuss oligopoly a little bit more in the next lectures. So we're going to be talking about those strategic decisions. How do we pay attention to our competitors and how their decisions are going to affect our well-being?